One of the side effects of the rapid pace of development we've seen recently is that sometimes people biking and walking have been left with closed sidewalks or bike lanes without adequate accommodation. And due to the fact that people have raised concerns about this issue and the fact that this fits in well with our Vision Zero policy, about development administrative rules for people walking back to parks and safe around work zones. Under the new guidelines, temporary detours that are out of extra walk the street, people walking back and using their mobile devices can be considered only after exhausting other options. In other words, safe passage for vulnerable users to the default, even if it requires temporarily closing a motor vehicle lane or removing parking temporarily. EVOT expects to fully incorporate the official guidelines in the building permit process for the project by the 2017 construction season. This is Vision Zero in action. This is a response to concerns raised by many citizens. It's one of the ways our Vision Zero policy was implemented in the safety of the solution. Now I'm pleased to turn it over for further elaboration.
Thank you, Commissioner, and the rest of the council. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about this, and so glad that we have got these administrative rules ready to go for your review and approval. This is the culmination of about 3 years of work on this, and it's really been supported. So thank you to Oregon Walks, BTA, and a lot of advocacy organizations that have helped us shape these policies. You know, as we are looking at unprecedented growth in the city and in development, we have repeatedly heard that pedestrians especially and then cyclists are being negatively impacted. So when sidewalks get closed, just as Ms. Miller Waters told you, people are diverted across traffic. There's not safe passage for them, and this is really a reflection of understanding that we have all different types of users accessing our transportation network. It's not just vehicles. We have pedestrians, we have cyclists, we have lots of people trying to get around in different ways. So we are trying to have safe passage for everyone in the city. And this is also not only a Vision Zero policy, but it's also supported by our comp plan and our hierarchy of how we are looking at the traveling public, that we want to prioritize the safety of pedestrians and cyclists along with automotive traffic. So I'm going to turn it over to Faith to walk through a PowerPoint that's got more details and answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks. Faith Weingarten, I'm the temporary street use permitting manager. And so the resolution that we're putting before you today states that when work is being performed in the right-of-way which impacts the sidewalk or a bike route, providing an adjacent walkway or a bike path is the default position. So closures are deemed the last resort in the absence of other practical routing or accommodation options. The problems that we wanted to solve are that closures are leaving people walking and biking with less than ideal conditions to navigate through and around, and detours that involve crossing streets or going out of direction, making the more attractive option the unsafe choice. So Vision Zero recognizes that the safe choice should also be convenient. A problem is that sidewalk closures with detours that are inconvenient, then people walking may choose a more dangerous route. Detours for people walking, biking, and using mobility devices are undesirable because they result in lower compliance. By forcing people to deviate their path, detours increase the likelihood that people will travel in a way that increases the risk of death or serious injury.
Can you keep this slide for a second? Because you said this is the problem, so we're getting to the solution. I just want to acknowledge two things that I've observed. And this is a good picture, but the egregious examples are where the fence actually covers the entire bike lane. And I've seen that all over the city. So you're riding on a protected bike lane, it's blocked, and you've got to now get into traffic. And presumably, and in many of the streets where you have that bike lane, they are there because the streets are dangerous. So we're encouraging them. So that's one thing. The second thing I've noticed, and it's happening all around City Hall, is that we're giving people in construction projects a permit to close a city street. for the purpose of the convenience of occasionally doing deliveries, which, by the way, at rush hour, there's never any deliveries, so you just have traffic jams. And I understand the safety issue there of wanting to occasionally allow someone to go to a construction site to drop something off. But what we're effectively doing on high-frequency streets is shutting down the lanes, which at rush hour makes it very difficult for people. And almost invariably, there's nothing happening during rush hour. And I just wonder whether, and these are not permanent closures, they have cones and they're set up so that a truck could theoretically come. I wonder whether those could be restricted to non-rush hour hours. Just a thought.
We'll follow up on that. I mean, we can talk further offline if you want, or I can. I mean, so there's issues of the way that we do a lot of our looking. EMP, engineering, looks at closures and the right of ways to engineering standards that don't necessarily look at the entire day. So we can start looking at different ways to access. It would be a change in our practices and the way that we do engineering. Also, it was a conversation with the developer, so I've had a couple of conversations with people on the downtown projects about taking a travel lane, and for them, in order to get safe passage without closing the entire travel lane, would then require them to hire traffic flaggers to come in and do flagging during the time that they would have deliveries done, and so that's an increased cost to them, so that's where we get pushback.
So I guess, and I'm not, you're the expert, I'm not going to debate the point. I'll defer to the way your experts look at this, but I think we have to balance that against hundreds and hundreds of cars idling in traffic unnecessarily, which does work against our climate action plan. The safety issues, just 3 blocks from here, there's a hotel going up, and there's a very difficult intersection with lanes blocked on both sides of the intersection. What we've done is we've created a situation that's unsafe for pedestrians who are dodging traffic. We're creating a situation that's unsafe for drivers because everyone's upset, and so they jump the light or they do other reckless things. And I get that the question of convenience and cost needs to be factored, but I hope it's heavily weighted against safety and climate action, because I think they're in collision, and I'm not sure.
No, it's not.
Have a flagger of such a great inconvenience measured against the fact that they're screwing up the circulation for bikers and cars and pedestrians.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That would be stronger and more stringent than what we're proposing. I appreciate the support, so we'll definitely look into it.
And we do restrict hours to non-peak hours in the downtown area. And sometimes they aren't in compliance, so that's one piece of it. So this is, as you were talking about, Commissioner Fish, you were talking about bicycle lanes, and so the next slide is just kind of demonstrating what you're saying, that the problem is that disruptions put bikes into traffic lanes without enough advance warning, or that the bike lane is compromised. So for a solution, I want to go over an example with you that is on Belmont and 21st. So the solution in this example implemented a plan which removed about 300 feet of on-street parking to maintain a travel lane and converted a travel lane to a bike and ped route, leaving the contractor the remaining right-of-way to facilitate their construction. This job site was in the middle of a block. It only had street frontage on Belmont, and so construction sites do have to have access. So this is one of the plans that we have put into action that reflect what our goals are: to maintain a travel lane, to maintain safe bike and pedestrian passage.
Pause on that photo for a second. So I like the direction you're going, but I want to quibble about a detail here. And and that is, if I see this, if I see what I think I see, which is, okay, so we're using the travel lane temporarily for pedestrian and bicycle movement, right? And there's a fenced-off area where the construction staging is taking place, right? So there are three elements. There are vertical plastic barriers, there's jersey barriers, I think the kind that you fill with water, right? And there's a fence. Why don't we require that the jersey barriers be on the outside to protect the pedestrians and bicycles, as well as the construction workers, instead of having the pedestrians and bicycles protected not much by a little piece of plastic? So I get it that there's a need for a jersey barrier to prevent, mayhem. But if we're going to do that, we're not going to spend any more money to put the jersey barriers where it would protect everybody instead of just their own workers. So I'm sure somebody just didn't think about this, but now that those are the typical three elements, you got to have a fence to secure the construction site and a way to tell the drivers of cars, I don't have this lane anymore, and we need some physical protection. Let's arrange those so that we get the maximum benefit.
Maybe even concrete barriers like you have on Jefferson between 2nd and 3rd. That does create a much safer walking environment than plastic or even those fillable water ones. So how do you choose whether you require concrete?
Well, our traffic engineer will make that determination, but one of the things that's a little tricky about concrete barriers is that they create their own danger if a car was to hit them, where the water-filled barriers are a safer option in some cases.
Safer for who? The driver or the pedestrian?
For both.
So how would you explain that? How would the water-filled barriers be safer for the pedestrian?
The driver.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how to respond to that. I mean, they're a heavy obstacle, but a car could hit a concrete barrier and